Before I begin my message, I want to make one thing clear. Tim, your granddaughter, when she was looking up here, grinning and smiling, she wasn't looking at you, she's looking at me. I just want to make that clear. She wasn't paying any attention to me.
What can I say?
Yeah, what can you say? Oh, man. She's laughing right now at us. Yeah. I know what she's thinking. What a couple of clowns. Let's turn to the text that our choir used for their special music today. We're going to use it for our message. Funny how those things happen, isn't it? The 121st Psalm. Let's read what the psalmist has to say. I will lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence comes my help. My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. He shall preserve your soul. The Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. And may God bless the reading of His Word today. Back in 1941, Hollywood came out with a movie entitled The Shepard of the Hills. The movie starred my look-alike, the Duke, Big John Wayne. Why does everybody laugh whenever I say that? I don't know. Anyway, the movie was about a community of people living up in the Ozark Mountains in Missouri. This community was filled with bitterness, envy, jealousy, rage, and a lot of violence. But a stranger came to those hills, bought some land, settled down there, and moved in. And over time, after much resistance and much strife, this quiet, peaceful, loving stranger changed those hill people. He changed those people from being people of hate to being people of love. He moved their anger to acceptance. He moved their bitterness to forgiveness. And he replaced their violence with peace. And therefore he was called the Shepherd of the Hills that those hill people needed for their lives. The writer of this psalm, as he lived his life, encountered a lot of hills in his life. Hills that he could not climb on his own. The same holds true for us as well. As we go through life, we too run up against a lot of hills. Hills too high and hills too hard for us to climb on our own. And when we do, we need the Shepherd of the hills to help us up and over our hills. Today we're going to see from this text just why and how Jesus Christ is the Shepherd of the hills that we all need. Reason number one, He is our Creator. Verse 2, the psalmist says that he looks to the Lord of the hills because He made heaven and earth. The psalmist knew full well who created and made both heaven and earth, both everything and everyone. The psalmist knew full well that the Lord had created both him and those hills that he was having to climb. Therefore, the psalmist concluded correctly that if the Lord had the power to create the hills and him, then surely He had the power to control the hills and him. The psalmist realized that the Lord was above and over both the hills and him, that the Lord was stronger and more powerful than both the hills and him. So because of this basic fact and truth of life, the psalmist, as he faced his hills, looked to the Shepherd of the hills. Second reason, He is our catcher. Verse 3, the psalmist points to the Lord not allowing His foot to be moved. Climbing the hills of life is slippery going, isn't it? God did not give us the climbing ability of mountain goats. Therefore, when we have to climb the hills of life, sooner or later, usually sooner, our feet begin to slip and stumble and slide. Our feet will be moved. And as we start to go down, the shepherd of the hills, with his big, strong, powerful hands, reaches down to catch us, to steady us, to stabilize us, to stand us back up, and to set us back up on our way to get up and over our hills. The third reason, he is our caretaker. How can the Lord take such good care of us on our hills? One of the reasons, he never sleeps. Verse 3, he who keeps you will not slumber. Verse 4, he shall neither slumber nor sleep. Because the Lord never goes to bed, never naps, never catches one wink, much less 40 winks, never even nods, dozes, bats, or blinks an eye, that means that he's always watching us, always seeing us as we go up our hills. That's great to know, isn't it? Because our hills come at different times of the day and night. Our hills come at different stages in our life. Our hills have a way of sneaking up on us, don't they? Surprising us, shocking us, stunning us, catching us off guard and throwing us a curve. But not so with the Lord. Because he's never asleep, because he's never off duty, on vacation, on break, out to lunch, out of the office, out of town, or AWOL, he's always awake and aware of what's going on in our lives. He's always able, ready, and willing to take care of us and our hills. The fourth reason, he is our cover. Listen to the psalmist in verses 5 and 6. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. Now the hills over in the Middle East have very little shade. Coupled with the blazing hot heat of the Middle East, this means that their hills were hot hills, heated hills, that made the climbing of them even more difficult and even more dangerous. A lot of our hills are that way, aren't they? A lot of our hills are hot and heated. A lot of our hills threaten to burn us and grill us. But the Lord is there with us to provide us with his shade and his cover. His shade and cover that relieves us from the heat and rescues us from the flame. His shade and cover that gets us through the scorching and searing heat that our hills often throw at us. And then the fifth reason, he is our Christ. In verse 7, the psalmist notes that the Lord shall preserve your soul. That is, the Lord saves our soul. The Lord is our Savior, our Messiah, and our Christ. And note where he is our Christ. He is our Christ here on earth. Verse 8, the Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in. This refers to our daily lives which we live. As we come and as we go, we encounter the hills. But no matter what hill we encounter as we come and go, they cannot touch or take away the salvation of our soul. No hill that we face in life can remove or replace our salvation. How is this true? How is this possible? Because Christ is the preserver of our soul. Because our soul is in his hands, and there is no hill that can knock us out or pry us out of his hands. But he's also our Christ, not only here on earth, but out in eternity. Notice the very last part of verse 8. From this time forth, and even forevermore. Don't you love that word? Forevermore. Now, even though when we get to heaven, we won't have any more hills to climb, he'll still be our Savior. He'll still be our Christ and our Messiah. When all of our hills are behind us and under us, When all of our hills have been climbed and leveled, we still will have our shepherd of the hills. Because you see, the shepherd of the hills is also the shepherd of heaven. The year was 2005. Tony Dungy was on top of the world in his profession. Tony Dungy was the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts professional football team. His team was the best in football that year. Their record was 13-0. He had a fair to middling quarterback named Peyton Manning. As I say, he was on top of the world. Well, he got in late one Sunday night after yet another victory, went to bed, and then at about 2 o'clock that morning his phone rang. It was a hospital calling from Tampa, Florida. Tony Dungy had a son who was going to college in Tampa, and the hospital was calling Tony to let him know that they had his son dead, for his son had taken his own life. After that experience, Tony Dungy wrote a book about that experience. And in his book, he says that it was this 121st song that got him and his wife over that hill. This 121st song. Well, just as the shepherd of the hills got Tony Dungy and his wife over their horrendous and horrific hill, he will do the same for you. For my friend, if Jesus Christ could climb that hill, if he could climb that hill, the hill called Calvary, he can enable you to climb any hill that life will throw at you. So remember that. Remember that. Any hill you have to face, he can enable you to climb it. So take his hand. Take his help. Let Jesus Christ take you up and over those hills. He can, and he will, because you see, he is the shepherd